Hey everyone, this is Keith, Developer MVP for Acumatica. Today I'll be going through customization projects and a few tips that I've learned along the way. So for those who don't know, customization projects are how we make screen changes in Acumatica. We also can make business logic changes, add additional fields, and many other things. So these customization projects can also have other information like generic inquiries and reports attached to them so that you can export them and move them to different systems, have backups of them, as well as turn off and on different changes. So published changes you can see on this screen. I've got all of my customization projects are all published. That means they're all active in the system. The first line is the checkbox of next time you publish, those screens will be active. So you can uncheck a box and then click publish and it will remove that customization project from being active without deleting it. So you can unpublish all, which is great if you have to make um, changes and they're not working. So you put in some code, it's not working right, or screen order isn't working right. So you can go and unpublish your changes and publish just your one project you're working on, and then start adding them back in to start seeing where your conflicts or issues arise. One of the things that helps with that is these levels. So the lower the level, the sooner it gets published. So if you have a screen that's referencing a higher level, like in this project, you want to reference a field that might be in a different project, you have to make sure that the first project is a lower level than the other project, so then it takes effect in those orders. Sometimes order may help with issues. They also have in terms of order where you might have one that's superseding another change, like with reports. So the project names you want to keep the same in your development system. It'll mess with bindings and other things, so try to name it and keep it that way. If you're migrating it from environment to environment, it shouldn't matter as long as you, again, keep those the same. So the customization projects have different ways to migrate your data from system to system. The easiest way is to export and import. So if you click export, it'll dump a zip file and then you can go back and import it. Now, if I just click import and browse to that file, it's going to create another customization project called cylinder tracking parentheses 80. And I don't want that. So in order to overwrite your changes, you can click on your customization project and say import, replace highlighted project content, and it will go and replace everything in here with whatever's in your zip file. So if you want to make your changes, you click on the customization project name and it goes through and shows you all of your information. So you can see all the different screens, whether or not they're new. So this is a large project that I'm working on. So you can see all the different new screens. You can see all the changes to these existing screens. And you can either click in them from there, or you can drop down your screens menu, and then you can see all the screen IDs and look. So some of them have different workflows enabled with the new workflow engine, and you can see the different workflows. So some of the sales order screens, you can see there's different workflows based on the different types. So you can click there and you can add workflows, you can customize workflows. So these are all the system read only. So you can see the existing workflows. System read only are defined in code. And I've got, let's see, I've got one 3012 workflows, and this default workflow should be a system read only because it's defined in code. So if I wanted to make changes to workflows, enable or disable them, you can make changes through the customization project. You can make changes to different fields to change your combo values. You can customize. So you can say, I want, let's say this field here. You can say when it's disabled, when it's hidden, when it's required. You can change the display name so you can see um, different, maybe you want this screen to show one thing versus something else, and also have different logic. So all of these down here are the conditions. So all my conditions here, customer empty is valid, not validated. Those are defined in my code, and those are screen specific. So because I don't want to make this change, I can hit this little back button or escape, and it'll revert. Save is just like other Acumatica screen with Control S. I recommend doing it often. And there's a couple reasons. First is if you make a change it'll kind of force the commit changes. So the one thing I've noticed is if you go here and let's say this customer field, and we want to change the ID. So if you change the ID and you make other changes and you hit save, it's going to revert anything else that's been changed after you did the ID. So like I'm just going to go and add this field right here. So route number is there. And then I'm going to go to layout properties so you can see here. So if I do, let me change this. I'll just put an ED in front of it. And then I'm going to say it's enabled as false. All right, so now, as you can see there, it didn't have that checkbox for some reason. When I hit save, it's gone. But now, when I go to enabled, it's there. So if you need to change your ID, change it first, then go through and change your other values, or else you're going to lose what you're working on, and that's never fun. So you can either reset properties here or remove a field you've added, or even remove a field you don't want anymore, and it'll make those changes. So I'm just going to remove that, and then I'm going to hit save. If you want to go back to what it was, you can hit the back button or the cancel, and it'll revert all your changes. So if you say you drag something on and it messed up, like a column or something, you don't know what happens, just hit the escape button, cancel it, and go back. So that's another reason why saving frequently is great, especially if you have backup, which doing an export before you're working on a lot of changes is really handy because you can always re-import your customization project. So we could see here. So data access and code, you'll see a lot in projects that are managed inside the customization project for the code. I use mine in Visual Studio, so it has a file of a DLL file. So if you're making changes to either your screens, the new screens, only the new ones, or your DLL files, you can detect modified files and it'll pull them into the customization project. If it's a screen change and you save it in the folder, it will not take effect until you bring it in and then publish it. Generic inquiries and database scripts, a lot of these other things that are added here, if you make a change in the background, you want to just go through and reload from database. So if you're making, an export of a bunch of changes or making a revision, just go through your different tabs and just click reload from database. Go to the sitemap, reload your sitemap from database. Things that'll help because you won't, you don't realize, oh, I made a change to this custom table, and why is my code not working? Oh, I forgot to pull over the database changes, even though I pulled over the code changes. So I'm going to show you. So one of the things is, so you can go to your publish, you can do validate, you can publish multiple projects from here without having to go back to the main menu. So if you're making changes and you want to incrementally publish, you can just go publish current project, and then go back and test them. So an extension library is it's a Visual Studio project that has all of your code. So as we can see here, the bind to exist, like this project, I redid my environment. So when I go to bind to existing, so it wants to create it inside of your um, instances folder. So it wants to, so if you see it looks for the project cylinder tracking. So if I go to my hard drive, I can find it in mine. Um, so this is the cylinder tracking is in this path, and I hit OK, and it's going to go and try and give me something to download and all that so that I can open up my solution. But so that shows, so when you go and add a screen, when you have a extension library, it'll add the code to your extension library. If you go and you go to code and you add a file, you can say move to extension library and it'll move that in for you. So if you create your screens or other things, it can scaffold it out into code and then you move it into your extension library. Um, so let's see, source control. Okay. So one of the good things about source control is this save project to folder. You don't have to use source control specifically for this. You can use just plain old Git, like a local version of Git. You can use, even volume shadow copy or just do a local backup. But when you save it to a folder, which I have my root of my customization projects here, it will go and save all of the changes to um, to a folder. So inside of it, and there's a big difference between this, is so under here you're under cylinder tracking, which is my customization project, which is another, change the name and this all gets messed up. But you have all of your bin folders, all of your files that get copied into the bin folder. So if we go to the files, you can see on the left that it mimics that. And then we can go to pages and then see why, and those are all the new pages. So it adds the ASPX and the code behind. So under the project folder, all of your other changes are all broken up into different XML files. So you can see these are different changes to each of the pages. These are the different sitemap nodes and things like that. Different customizations to different tables. So we can go and edit this. Let me open this up. So you can see here that it says table names SO line. There's the column name, and you can see all the different properties of the customization project. So one of the benefits of knowing the ins and outs of some of these, some of these files is, let's say you have a problem with some of your changes and you want to remove them out of your customization project. You can just go and delete these items and then go back to source control and open from a folder. Then it'll go and replace whatever's in there. The biggest difference is when you're looking at a cylinder, when you're looking at a customization project, and I'll bring up the zip file that's generated. It has this gigantic XML file that is all of the changes. It still has your pages and bin, but the project folder, instead of being one XML file, is broken up into a bunch of different folders. So if we need to get rid of a couple generic inquiries or replace them, or get rid of some customizations, customized screens, we can just go and remove those individual items and then re-import it. I had to do this when I wanted to make a backup of workflows. I moved my workflows from a customized in the customization project to a workflow in the code. So rather than going through and having to delete or migrate everything, I had it up on the screen, duplicate it in the code, and then I exported it and then I moved it into its own project. So I have these items, which I pulled out of the project folder from the one customization project and moved them into another one so I could publish them. And then when I was done uh, writing these changes, I could just republish the project without the workflows and then recompile, and all my workflows were in. So knowing your way around this for some troubleshooting with your projects might be handy. Let's say I want to take back a change. So when you're looking at source control, if you're committing the customization project to source control or backing it up, you can go and replace. So you realize, oh, I messed up that screen. You can go back to this folder from yesterday, from a backup or whatever you decide to do, and then you can just copy that one file and put it over here, and it will pull those changes in. So you can revert the issues you've caused, um, or if there's changes that you are in the middle of and you're just messing around and you don't want them in your project before exporting, you can export it to source control, remove the items you don't want, re-import it, and it cleans up your project. So, and then again, save project to folder, dumps it down, and then we can just go open project from folder and you hit OK, and it'll just reload itself with what's in the folder. And right now, there are no changes. So it should look the same. One of the other things that I ran into recently, so on the line of changing your ID, okay, I went to a screen and I broke the non-stock item screen because this customization project, it says the view does not exist because I updated the ID. So you can see object reference project must be published to the screen before. The issue is it can't find the view when you look at the page. It's view not found. Well, I typed in the view. Well, did I? So I did that because the um, what you call it, because I changed the ID, typed everything in, I changed the ID, I hit save, and everything I changed was gone. So how do we fix this, right? So we can either go back to a state from our, reload it from a file and pull in our old change, right? That's a way to do it. Or you can go and edit the ASPX directly. So we're going to go and look for the one specific field. I'm going to pull up my graph on my other window so I know what I'm looking for. It's DWM, day, week, month calculator. So as you can see here, I'm added different things. I changed the ID, I hit save, and all it took was what I had in there beforehand. So you can see there's no levels and things like that. So as you can see here on the grid level, that's where it pulls the view. So we're going to go in and fix this. And I also wanted to move it underneath, right? And I couldn't get it to put where I wanted, which is underneath this grid. So I'm going to cut, and we're going to paste it back in. And so the data source ID, so we're going to say the grid level is data member equals DWM calculator. So then we can go to, then do the end PX, go on PX grid level. And so now we can hit generate customization script. It'll format it all and it will look for any changes in it. So now when I go back to the screens here, let's see if that worked. So we can see it needs to be published. So we're just going to publish the screen, but it allows you to go in and make changes to the screen and other things like that before. It can be dangerous if you don't know. It's ASP.NET Web Forms. Sometimes it can be tricky. There's no validation like there is in the Visual Studio browser. when you're doing like the design view. So it's could be a little hairy. So that's another reason why having your source control is saving your project. So um, we could just go revert the change to this one file, reload the project in, and there we go, it's all fixed. So anyway, I hope I shared maybe a couple things that might help you out. And if you have any comments or anything else you'd like to see, leave them on the video or go to the Acumatica community forums or go to Stack Overflow and ask your questions. One of the MVPs will be definitely glad to help you out with anything. All right, well, thank you guys and have a great day.